Imagine a writer creating the most famous character in the history of literature, only to grow to hate him so much that he wanted to plot his death. This is part of the story of Arthur Conan Doyle, a brilliant writer whose life was as amazing as his books. However, he often felt overshadowed by his most famous creation, the clever detective Sherlock Holmes. Many people know Holmes, but fewer know the man who brought him to life. This book will take you on a journey through Doyle's wildly varied life. You will learn about his difficult start as a medical student with little money. You will follow him as a brave doctor on a whaling ship in the cold Arctic. Then he became a tireless real-life detective, helping to solve crimes and freeing innocent people from jail. Later in his life, something surprising happened. This man of science and logic became a strong believer in ghosts and fairies. How could someone who believed in facts and reason change so much? How does a man who used strict science to write detective stories become the world's biggest supporter of spirits and magic? His journey is full of twists and turns. It shows how one person's life can change in unexpected ways. This first chapter introduces you to the amazing person that was Arthur Conan Doyle. Get ready to explore his world and discover how he tried to kill his own hero, fought for justice, and then searched for answers in the world of the unseen.
The story of this extraordinary man begins right here. A hard childhood. Arthur Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, in 1859. His early life was very difficult. His family faced constant poverty, often without enough money for basic needs. His father, Charles, suffered from severe alcoholism, which made home life unstable and sad. This addiction grew so bad that in 1864, the family could not stay together. Young Arthur, along with his brothers and sisters, had to live apart from their parents, staying in different homes across Edinburgh. This was a very hard time for him. After about 3 years, in 1867, the family tried to live together again. However, their home at 3 Cyanes Place was a small, squalid tenement flat. It was crowded and dirty, showing their ongoing financial problems. His father's illness with alcohol continued for many years. He eventually had to live in a hospital for mental health and died there in 1893. During these tough years, Arthur found his greatest comfort and escape in books. He would spend hours reading, using stories to hide from the sadness and chaos of his broken home. When Arthur was 9 years old, his wealthy uncle stepped in to help. They paid for him to attend a special Jesuit boarding school in England called Hodder Place. After 2 years, he moved to Stonyhurst College, another Jesuit school, where he stayed until 1875.
Life at these schools was extremely strict and harsh. Arthur later said he had no happy memories of Stonyhurst because it followed old medieval principles. Instead of kindness, the school used physical beatings, known as corporal punishment, and public shaming. Despite this difficult environment, Arthur discovered an important talent. He found he had a special gift for telling stories. He would gather his friends and entertain them with exciting tales, making their harsh school days feel a little brighter. This was the first sign of his future as a famous writer. After Stonyhurst, his family decided on another step for his education. To help him learn German and broaden his knowledge, they sent him to a Jesuit school called Stella Matutina
in Feldkirch, Austria, for 1 year. This journey offered Arthur a new path, a chance to experience something different away from the difficulties of his childhood. Would this new environment in Austria lead him to the success and bright future he deeply wanted to achieve? 3. The Young Doctor. Arthur Conan Doyle started his medical studies at the University of Edinburgh in 1876. This was a busy and important time for him. He worked hard to learn about health, diseases, and the human body. During these years, he also began to develop his writing skills. His very first published story, The Mystery of Sasasa Valley, a tale set in South Africa, appeared in a magazine called Chambers Edinburgh Journal in 1879.
While studying medicine, Arthur met a crucial figure, Dr. Joseph Bell. Dr. Bell was one of Arthur's professors, and he was an amazing teacher. He had a unique and powerful way of looking at people and noticing even the smallest details. Dr. Bell could observe a patient, and from tiny clues like their hands, clothes, or way of speaking, he could deduce many things about their life, their job, or where they had been. Arthur was deeply impressed by Dr. Bell's extraordinary observational skills and his logical way of thinking. Years later, when Arthur created his most famous character, the detective Sherlock Holmes, he used Dr. Bell as his direct inspiration. He wanted Holmes to use the same clever methods of deduction, inference, and careful observation to solve mysteries. After finishing his medical degree in 1881, Arthur felt a strong desire to explore the world. He took a job as a doctor on a whaling ship named the Hope. This ship sailed to the cold, icy waters of the Arctic. It was a thrilling and often dangerous journey, facing harsh weather and vast frozen seas. Later, he also worked as a ship's surgeon on a voyage to the warm, distant coast of West Africa. These 2 sea trips gave him many new experiences, adventures, and ideas for stories. In 1882, Arthur returned to England. He decided to open his own medical practice in the town of Portsmouth. He arrived with very little money, less than £10, which was not much even for that time. He rented a small office at One Bush Villas and waited for patients. But his waiting room stayed empty most of the time. People did not come to see the new young doctor. His medical practice was simply not successful. Arthur needed money to live. He could not make enough from his doctor's work. So he thought about his other talent and passion. He remembered how much he enjoyed writing stories. With no patients to see, he sat in his empty office day after day and started to write more fiction. This was a desperate change in his plans. He began writing just to survive. But this sudden pivot would become the start of his incredible literary career. 4. The Famous Detective. Arthur Conan Doyle, a young doctor with few patients, found that writing was his only way to earn money. He spent 3 weeks writing a story about a clever detective. This was a study in scarlet. It introduced Sherlock Holmes, a brilliant man who solved mysteries using logic and observation, and his loyal friend, Dr. Watson. Doyle struggled to find a publisher for his first detective story. Finally, in 1886, a company bought all the rights to the story for a very small sum of £25. This was not much money, but Doyle needed it to survive. The story was published in an annual book in 1887 and received good reviews from newspapers. Soon,
Sherlock Holmes stories began to appear regularly in the Strand magazine. The first one was A Scandal in Bohemia in 1891. People across the country, and indeed the world, loved Holmes and Dr. Watson. They quickly became household names and very famous. Readers waited eagerly each month for new stories, wanting to see how Holmes would use his incredible deductions to solve difficult crimes. This rapid success made Arthur Conan Doyle a very rich man. He became one of the most famous and best-paid writers of his time. The stories had a massive cultural impact, with Holmes being seen as a new kind of intellectual hero. However, a strange and difficult feeling began to grow in Doyle's heart. He felt ambivalence towards his famous character. Even though Holmes brought him great wealth and worldwide fame, Doyle felt trapped. He deeply wanted to write other kinds of books, especially historical novels, which he believed were more important and serious works of literature. He wrote to his mother, saying he wanted to kill Holmes off forever because the detective was taking his mind from what he called better things. His mother famously replied, "You won't, you can't, you mustn't." Doyle tried to stop writing Holmes stories. He asked for very high prices for them, hoping publishers would say no and leave him free. But they always said yes, ready to pay any large amount for new adventures of the popular detective. This only made Doyle feel more like Holmes was a heavy burden. He felt exploited by his own creation, even as it made him famous. The detective who had brought him so much success started to feel like his greatest enemy, demanding all his creative energy. Doyle, a prolific writer, wished to explore many different stories, not just one. In 1893, Doyle made a bold decision. He wrote The Final Problem, a story where he planned for Sherlock Holmes and his evil enemy, Professor Moriarty, to fall to their deaths together down the Reichenbach Falls. He truly wanted to be free from the detective for good. But the public had other ideas. There was a huge outcry from millions of readers who loved Holmes. They didn't want their hero to die. This wave of public anger was a great challenge for Doyle. He had created a character so real to people that they felt a personal loss. The money kept coming in, but the success began to feel more and more like a prison. Doyle had to decide if he would listen to his readers or follow his own artistic desires. The future of Sherlock Holmes and of Arthur Conan Doyle's career was now very uncertain. 5. Killing the hero. Arthur Conan Doyle began to feel a deep resentment toward Sherlock Holmes. The detective had brought him fame and wealth, but Doyle felt trapped by his creation. He believed Holmes took too much of his time and mental energy. Doyle wanted to write other, more serious historical novels, which he considered his true literary work. He felt Holmes was stopping him from achieving his deeper artistic goals. In 1891, he even wrote to his mother about slaying Holmes and winding him up for good and all. His mother, however, strongly disagreed, telling him, "You won't, you can't, you mustn't." Despite his mother's plea, Doyle moved forward with his plan. In December 1893, he decided to kill Holmes. He planned a shocking assassination for his famous character. In the story called The Final Problem, Sherlock Holmes faced his greatest enemy, Professor Moriarty. They fought a terrible battle at Reichenbach Falls, a dangerous waterfall in Switzerland. Both men fell into the churning waters and were presumed dead. Doyle hoped this would finally end Holmes' story, leaving him free to write his preferred historical works. But the public did not accept Doyle's decision. The reaction from readers was truly unprecedented. People across the Victorian world loved Holmes deeply, and they were incredibly sad and angry. Many wore black mourning bands on their arms, as if for a real death. Publishers were also shocked and begged Doyle for more stories. Thousands canceled their magazine subscriptions in protest, causing significant financial loss. The public outcry was massive and emotional. Doyle found himself at a difficult crossroads.
He felt a strong ambivalence, torn between his artistic desires and public demand. He had killed his most popular character, but the world would not let him go. Would he give in to his readers' wishes and the publisher's financial pleas? Would he perform a literary resurrection and find a way to bring Sherlock Holmes back from the dead? Or would he stand firm, keep his hero dead, and focus on the historical novels he believed were more important? This was a very hard choice for Arthur Conan Doyle. 6. Real-life crimes. Arthur Conan Doyle was famous for Sherlock Holmes, but he also wanted to help people in real life. He used his clever mind not just for stories, but to solve real crimes. He became a strong advocate for justice. One important case was in 1906. It was about a man named George Adalji. George was a shy lawyer. His father was Indian and his mother was British. Someone sent bad letters and hurt animals in a village called Great Wirely. The police thought George was guilty. They put him in prison. But the strange thing was, the animal attacks did not stop after George was in jail. This showed that the police had made a mistake. Doyle heard about this. He saw that the police had made many errors. He used his skills, like Sherlock Holmes, to look closely at the facts. He found problems in the police investigation. Doyle wrote about the case and worked hard to prove George's innocence. Because of Doyle's efforts, George Adalji received his exoneration and was freed from prison. This was a great win for justice. Doyle's work on the Adalji case was very important. It showed that the justice system could make mistakes. It helped create the British Court of Criminal Appeal in 1907. This court was made to check if people were wrongly found guilty. It was a new system to correct unfair decisions. This set a precedent for how law worked. Another case that caught Doyle's attention was Oscar Slater's. In 1908, a rich old woman was attacked and killed in Glasgow. Oscar Slater, a German Jewish man, was accused of the crime. He ran a gambling place. Many people did not like him. He was found guilty and sent to prison. But Doyle felt there were many inconsistencies in the evidence. He thought Slater was not guilty. Doyle spent his own money to help Slater. He worked for many years, looking at old papers and asking questions. Finally, in 1928, after 19 years in prison, Oscar Slater's case was heard again. He was freed. Doyle showed that his detective skills were not just for books. He could help real people. His work changed the law and saved innocent lives. He proved that fighting for truth was his most important work. 7. Believing in ghosts. The First World War brought a deep sadness to Arthur Conan Doyle's life. Many people he loved died during these terrible years. His son, Kingsley, passed away in 1918 from pneumonia,
a sickness he got after being badly hurt in the war. Doyle's brother Innes also died from pneumonia soon after. Two of his brothers-in-law and two nephews lost their lives too. These many deaths caused Doyle great sorrow and left him searching for answers and comfort. Before these tragedies, Doyle was known for his love of science and logic. He created Sherlock Holmes, a detective who used facts and careful thinking to solve even the hardest crimes. But the war changed Doyle's way of thinking completely. He now looked for comfort and hope in a new belief, spiritualism. Spiritualism is the idea that the spirits of dead people can communicate with living people. Doyle believed that this could help people who had lost loved ones find peace. He started to believe strongly in psychics and mediums, people who claimed they could speak to the dead. For Doyle, spiritualism was a new revelation from God, a way to heal the deep pain of loss and connect with those who had passed. He wrote many books about these beliefs and traveled widely, giving talks in places like Australia, New Zealand, and the United States to share his spiritualist views with the world. One very surprising event was Doyle's public support for the Cottingley fairies. These were famous photographs taken by two young girls showing small, winged creatures that looked like fairies.
Doyle looked at these pictures and truly believed they were real, even writing a book about them in 1922 called The Coming of the Fairies. He said that people who thought the photos were fake were wrong. But many years later, the girls admitted that the photos were a hoax. They had used paper cutouts of fairies to trick everyone. This period also brought a bitter public argument between Doyle and his old friend, Harry Houdini, the famous escape artist. Houdini was a skeptic of spiritualism. He used amazing tricks in his own shows and understood well how people could be fooled. Houdini believed that all psychics and mediums were frauds and used tricks, not real supernatural powers. He tried hard to show Doyle that there was always a rational explanation for seemingly impossible events without needing ghosts or spirits. However, Doyle thought Houdini himself had real magical abilities. He could not believe Houdini was just using tricks, even when Houdini tried to explain his methods. This deep disagreement led to the painful end of their friendship. It was a strange change for the man who created Sherlock Holmes, a character famous for using pure logic and facts to solve mysteries. Doyle, however, found immense comfort in spiritualism, driven by a desperate need to believe in a way to communicate with the dead after suffering so much personal loss. This was the end of the story. Arthur Conan Doyle spent his final years in the quiet countryside of Sussex. He lived with his second wife, Jean, in their home called Windlesham Manor. Even in these later years, his dedication to spiritualism did not change. He continued to give talks about his beliefs in Britain, Europe, and the United States, sharing his hope of life after death. On July 7, 1930, at the age of 71, Arthur Conan Doyle was found clutching his chest in the hall of his home. He had suffered a heart attack. His very last words, spoken to his beloved wife, were simple and beautiful. "You are wonderful." Doyle was first buried in his garden at Windlesham Manor. Later, he was reinterred with his wife in Minstead Churchyard in the New Forest. His gravestone shows these words: "Steel true, blade straight, Arthur Conan Doyle, knight, patriot, physician, and man of letters." His legacy is truly monumental, reaching far beyond the famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Doyle, a man of great complexity, also left his mark in many other areas. He fought for justice in real-life crime cases, helping to free innocent men, and inspiring the creation of the British Court of Criminal Appeal. He was a keen sportsman, playing cricket, football, and golf, and even helped design buildings. He was a prolific writer, creating over 200 stories and articles.
Arthur Conan Doyle was a brilliant mind who showed the world that science and imagination, logic and belief could all live in one person. His life reminds us that a single individual can change many things. Which part of Arthur Conan Doyle's life surprised you the most? His incredible real-life detective work, or his deep belief in ghosts and fairies? Let us know in the comments below.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.